On this Saturday night, the scramble to get back to Canada. Canadians abroad rush to get home.
I find that just a little annoying.
After the government cancels flights and issues new quarantine rules, the businesses defying health orders.
We're all up in arms.
And the politicians supporting them. Plus, the new industrial revolution, the rise of robotics in the home delivery boom, and the gift that keeps on giving to a Canadian centenarian.
Global National with Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The federal government insists airlines are working to get Canadians abroad back home. Many flights to popular sun destinations are being cancelled as part of Ottawa's plan to restrict travel and stop the spread of COVID-19. The other component is having to pay to quarantine upon landing back in Canada. So there's a frenzy to get home to avoid the costly bill. Here's Mike Drolet.
Like thousands of other Canadians, escaping winter from Mexico's warmth proved too enticing for Pat Hall and her husband. Despite the warnings about traveling, they say they haven't felt any more at risk of getting COVID than they were at home in Calgary.
They've got quite a few rules here, actually. I find people driving, even in their cars, are wearing masks. So they're taking it pretty seriously down here.
But like other Canadians on vacation down south, they're booking early flights home. All flights on Canadian Airlines to Mexico and the Caribbean have been cancelled as of Sunday, and return flights as of February 14th. And international travelers arriving in Canada will soon have no choice but to spend $2,000 for a COVID test in 3 days in a quarantine hotel. Rules Dr. Anna Banerjee hopes will help avoid another surge.
Is it too late? Probably not, because March break is coming up. And people are tired. And, we saw what happened during the holidays when, they said, well, the restrictions came in a little bit late. And so half of Canada engaged with people outside of their household.
So long as they pay for the quarantine hotel, nothing is stopping Canadians from traveling. There are plenty of flights leaving Toronto for Cancun on Monday, just none with Canadian Airlines. And if Canadians want to fly on Air Canada or WestJet to California, Florida, or Hawaii, they can.
And yet the voters in Ontario and Quebec are able to go to Florida and back without the same kind of penalty whatsoever. So we're fine. I find that just a little annoying, to be honest with you.
And he's not the only one.
Our new slogan has been discourage vacations, not family.
Dr. David Poon fought and won the right for unwed partners to reunite in Canada. The new rules, he says, paints them with the same brush as those on vacation. And he's afraid families will once again be split up.
People have waited months for their visa, ready to see their family, and then suddenly an extra $2,000, they can't afford that.
Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
Alberta is introducing a new framework that allows public health measures to be eased when COVID-19 hospitalizations drop. It goes into effect in February, but some businesses, frustrated with the loss of money and tired of the pandemic, are already open. Heather Yourex-West reports.
In Alberta, restaurants have been closed to in-person dining since mid-December. But in this central Alberta town, the Noble Fox is bustling.
It was a hard decision. Like I said, I didn't take it lightly. But again, enough is enough, and I need to make sure they hear us.
Carlos Sigenz's business has been visited by health officials, but the small business owner remains defiant. And he's not alone. A small number of other rural Alberta eateries have opened in protest too. Even mayors for Lac La Biche and Bonnyville have joined the defiance to sit down for a meal in an effort to support these businesses.
If we're all mad and we're all up in arms about what's going on and how we're being treated, they don't have any choice to listen.
Decisions that are being taken to open in contravention of the orders are not in the best interests of our communities.
The message from health officials has consistently been one of the need for cooperation, that the sacrifice of many is required for the common good. But this behavioral science expert says that strategy has limits.
I think with the new variants, we should look again at considering a mix of both incentives and disincentives, so carrots and sticks, for helping to encourage people to do good behavior that helps everybody and that they gain from it.
Especially when business owners have so much at stake. Restaurants Canada does not support businesses opening in defiance of health orders, but it also says it's not surprised to see owners desperate to stay open. Without more support, it estimates nearly half of its members won't survive the year.
We've got grants in Alberta, but they don't cover anywhere near the losses that restaurants are facing. And, we've got the wage subsidy and the rent subsidy, which are a big help to a lot of our members. But we still have many of them that are falling through those eligibility cracks.
The reality is, even with the promise of a vaccine, the threat of COVID-19 will likely only get worse in the coming months.
Unfortunately, if these variants take hold, we may see further restrictions or at least longer term restrictions. When it is allowed to spread in the community, our healthcare system simply cannot keep up.
Making widespread compliance to public health guidelines more important now than ever. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
In the U.S., more than 26 million people have now tested positive for COVID-19. That's 1 out of every 12 Americans. The Biden administration is pushing Congress to pass its $1.9 trillion relief package to fund a federal vaccine program. As Jennifer Johnson reports, fears are growing over the variants spreading across state lines.
Starting Monday, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is making masks mandatory on all public transportation across the U.S. Not just planes and trains, but also taxis, ferries, even rideshare cars. Another weapon to fight the pandemic as the Biden administration pushes Congress to pass its $1.9 trillion COVID relief package, which includes $20 billion for federal vaccination centers.
The COVID relief has to pass. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
The Biden team says about 1 million doses a day were administered over the past week. They want that increased to 1.5 million a day as weary Americans await their vaccination. This weekend, senior citizens in Denver were put into a pool and randomly selected to receive 10,000 available doses. Over 500,000 people are on a waiting list in Dallas County.
Registration is critically important, but the message also needs to get out there. We need more supply.
Vaccine supplies are still way below demand as new, more transmissible strains of the virus appear in at least 30 states. Concerns are mounting over the latest one detected in South Carolina.
We are in particular very worried about the South African variant because it appears to make vaccines less effective.
Federal officials are working with the state's health department to try and stop the spread of that strain.
With resources for increased testing, increased surveillance, as well as increased resources for vaccination and funding.
As hospitalizations start to level off, states are again reopening some businesses. Indoor dining at 25% capacity will return to New York on Valentine's Day. Outdoor dining is back in Los Angeles County at 50% capacity after a 2-month pause.
It won't be summertime busy down here, but it'll be busy. I think everyone's going to come out. They've been cooped up. They haven't been able to have that restaurant experience.
But experts warn this latest reopening phase may be short-lived if new strains of the virus continue their rapid spread. Jennifer Johnson, Global News, Washington.
In Europe tonight, new border restrictions are going into effect to slow the spread of COVID-19 and its new strains. Starting tomorrow in France, all travel from outside the EU will be banned with the exception of truckers coming from the UK. Those entering from a European country must have a COVID test. And Germany has banned travelers from countries where the new variants have been detected, including the UK and Ireland. The World Health Organization is criticizing the European Union for adding export controls on COVID-19 vaccines. The WHO says the new measures could cause supply chain disruptions that ripple around the world and potentially prolong the pandemic.
Let's say it's not helpful to have any country at this stage put in export bans or barriers that will not allow for the free movement of the necessary ingredients that will make vaccines, diagnostics, and other medicines available to all the world.
The new measures allow the EU to deny vaccine exports if the manufacturer has not honored existing contracts with blocked nations. The controls impact about 100 countries worldwide. The EU says the measures are temporary and not an export ban. Late this afternoon, Canada's International Trade Minister sent out this tweet saying she spoke to her EU counterpart today and was reassured that Canada's vaccine shipments will not be affected by the new measures. Israel facing criticism for not including Palestinians in its aggressive vaccine rollout. is now changing that. A government source confirmed to Global News Israel will transfer 5,000 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine to the Palestinian Authority in order to vaccinate 2,500 medical workers. The shots are due to be delivered to the West Bank early next week. It's not clear whether any of the shots will be given to health workers in the densely populated Gaza Strip, which is controlled by Hamas and subject to a blockade. There have been more than 158,000 cases of COVID-19 in the 2 Palestinian territories since the pandemic began. These vaccines are the lifeline Canadians need to protect themselves, but Canada has been dealt a blow with delays. Moderna will ship only about 3/4 of Canada's next shipment, cutting next week's delivery by more than 50,000 doses. Pfizer is shipping roughly 80% fewer shots than it initially promised over the next month. Mercedes Stevenson joins us to talk about how these delays impact the people on the front lines. Mercedes.
Robin, last week there were 0 Pfizer vaccines delivered to Canada, and on Friday we learned that there will be a drop in the Moderna deliveries by 20 to 25% over the month of February. The head of the Canadian Medical Association says these setbacks are demoralizing and distressing for doctors.
The messaging around this is it's upsetting and it's confusing, not only to healthcare providers, but to Canadians in general. It is distressing to hear that there's been a decrease in the anticipated dose delivery numbers in the next coming weeks, both from Pfizer and more recently today from Moderna. And yet we keep hearing messaging from the Prime Minister that things are on track. Everything will be still as it should be by the end of March. And of course, that doesn't really add up.
Dr. Collins added that it's critical to ensure healthcare workers and physicians get the vaccine so they can remain on the front lines to go back to battle against the virus. She also said that doctors want to be confident in the government's efforts to procure vaccines, but she reiterated twice that the math just doesn't seem to add up. The government asserts that all Canadians who want to get a vaccine will be able to by the end of September. Robin?
Mercedes Stevenson in Ottawa. Thanks, Mercedes. Coming up, a Canadian Olympic champion loses her medals in a fire. We are learning more tonight about the members of a Toronto family killed in a house fire. 4 people died, including a young child. The family was part of a tight-knit community, and the deaths are having a devastating impact. Here's Morgan Campbell.
The memorial grows outside of this burned-out Toronto home.
And I sit there thinking about the horror. I don't know, I'm dying that way.
People still coming to terms with the aftermath of Friday's fire in the city's East End. The flames overwhelming the residents, killing 4 people and injuring 2 others. Global News has learned several generations of the same family lived in the home. The owner, Aria Janssens, along with her son and grandmother.
It's heart-wrenching. It's terrifying. I saw the footage and the flames coming. Like, I lived in that window, and it's tough.
Friends say Janssens survived the fire and is recovering in hospital. Her son died from his injuries.
The investigation is multifaceted, and fire officials say they expect to remain here on scene for the next several days, trying to determine what exactly sparked the blaze.
We are collectively have to answer the questions.
Deputy Chief Larry Coco says investigators are trying to determine whether the home had working smoke alarms, among other things.
All factors surrounding the occupancy, its use, and what was occurring will form part of that. Again, it's an active investigation, and we're collecting all that information.
Several firefighters were also injured, including one who fell through the floor and another who was caught in what is called a flashover.
The temperatures inside the house rose to the point where everything in the house became flammable and burst into flames. And when that happens, you have seconds to get yourself to a safe spot.
The scene tragic and hard to comprehend for those wanting to know what happened and why.
I don't really want to sit there and try and think it to feel it, because I haven't had a chance to process this.
Morgan Campbell, Global News, Toronto.
Canadian Olympic diver Megan Benfido and her boyfriend Alexandre Dupuis, who plays with Edmonton's CFL team, have lost everything in a fire. Benfido was home alone in their Montreal condo when a neighbor's barbecue blew up and set the building ablaze. She managed to escape, but the fire destroyed all their belongings, including her 3 Olympic medals and 2 medals won at the Pan Am Games. On Instagram, the couple says to appreciate the things you have, they might be gone in a minute. Still ahead, it's been dubbed Industry 4.0. Is Canada ready for this revolution?
You're watching Global National.
Whether ordering takeout or buying toilet paper, since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, Canadians have relied on home delivery like never before. But as these demands increase, so does the need for greater efficiency in bringing goods from the warehouse floor to your door. Many economists see this as an opportunity for Canadian industries to embrace automation. Mike Drolet looks into whether Canada is ready to invest in a new industrial revolution.
This is Sobeys' big bet, the most complex and advanced merging of AI and robotics in a Canadian grocery store chain. It cost $100 million, and they couldn't be happier.
They move 4 meters a second. You know, they are just zipping past. It takes your breath away. You realize that there's nothing quite that productive in the world.
Sobeys decided to make a technological shift in its warehouse and home delivery system 2 years ago, a move that seems prescient now considering the millions of Canadians working from home. With online orders up 300%, they're now planning new hubs in Alberta and Quebec, and then another down the road.
With 4 of these facilities across the country, we can get within 75% of the Canadian population, and actually more impressively, 90% of the expected e-commerce spend.
What Sobeys is doing is what economists argue Canada needs more of to flourish post-pandemic. The wide-scale implementation of AI, machine learning, and robots is being called Industry 4.0, or the fourth industrial revolution. Some would argue automation is a risk for the loss of jobs alone. With advancements in AI, driverless buses, and computer-generated media influencers, once thought to be impossible, are now reality. Countless papers have been written on the subject of which jobs are most likely to become obsolete. Stats Canada reports the top 3 to be office support, the service industry, and construction trades. Computers and artificial intelligence have become better at organizing and taking orders, so it just makes sense. But it doesn't tell the whole story. Because for all the talk about technology, Canada might not be fully ready for it. Automation consultant Ben Angel says massive investment is needed at the warehouse level.
Well, our factories are actually well automated. That happened, you know, the assembly line, that was automated 20, 25 years ago. So our Canadian factories are well automated. No issues with that. But it's when that product is made, when it's moving to the warehouse. Our warehouses are full of forklifts. Canadian companies love their forklifts.
The good news is the country's colleges and universities are addressing the issue by offering automation and mechatronic courses. If change starts with education, Canada is hopefully now on the right course. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
And to learn why the future of Canada's post-pandemic growth is going to be so dependent upon robotics and artificial intelligence, watch The New Reality tonight on Global. It's a special day in Beaver Harbor, New Brunswick. Up next, the big birthday getting global attention. According to a recent U.S. study, about 1 in 1,000 people who reach the age of 100 can live to 110. Today, one of the oldest Canadians became one of them. Because of the pandemic, the New Brunswick man can't mark the milestone surrounded by loved ones at a party, so his family found another way to make his big day special safely. Travis Fortnum explains.
Dubbed Canada's grandpa, New Brunswicker Arnold Hawkins is now 110 years old.
I just can't believe he's still here. Happy birthday.
The usual open house party that's proven to be a hot ticket since he hit the century milestone just couldn't happen in pandemic times. So his family went looking for another way to celebrate.
A friend of ours say, why don't you put his address in case somebody wants to send a card?
By making a public ask for birthday cards. A lot of birthday cards.
I thought maybe we could hit the 110 if I just posted on his Facebook page. Just kind of exploded.
With the big day here, Hawkins' granddaughter says they've received more than 5,000 and counting from places far and wide.
We have all the Atlantic provinces here, right straight across Canada to Alberta and BC, Saskatchewan, like everywhere. Northwest Territories, we've got Australia, we've got Germany and the UK, everywhere.
Schools, senior homes, long-lost family, but mostly strangers.
The stories that people are sending us, you know, about their own families, and it's just pretty amazing.
Like they're sending so many messages and saying how uplifting it is to them.
His super centenarian smile, a symbol of hope in trying times.
I don't know what to say. It might take me till his birthday next year when he's 110. I might still be reading cards to him.
Travis Fortnum, Global News, Beaver Harbor, New Brunswick.
And that is Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Robin Gill. Tonight, your Canada is Pyramid Mountain in Jasper National Park. We'd love to see your corner of the country, so please keep sending your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.